Rancher Raymond McDaniel has more than 50 wind turbines on his land.
So you're saying this is one of the small ones?
Yes, this is one of the small ones.
For most ranchers in these parts, McDaniel says it was a struggle just to break even in the cattle business.
There was no water, and there was no grass, and there was no market. So everything went downhill pretty good.
But the money they received from leasing land to power companies and their turbines, he says, has given ranchers some breathing room, money to better tend to their land and their cattle. And the turbines are multiplying.
West Texas is the fourth largest nation for wind energy today. There's Germany, Spain, India, and West Texas.
So far, more than $6 billion has been invested in 120 West Texas counties.
We hear nationally that people are being laid off by tens of thousands. It's like they need to come here. And we hear nationally that housing starts are down. Well, West Texas needs hundreds of new, very high-quality homes.
To meet hiring demands, the community college has added courses in wind technology.
Typical gearbox in a GE 1.5.
Students are shifting gears to train for careers in wind farming because the pay is 2 to 3 times the local average.
It's such a new career field that you cannot find people generally, especially in this area, that have any experience.
The industry has given the entire region a second wind, generating new businesses and new construction.
What do you think when you see all those?
Changing world.
Monsters in the making or harbingers of a new way of life. Once again, the winds of change are blowing across West Texas.
That tremendous torque is put to work inside the turbine's power plant, 200 feet above the ground.
The blades collect the energy from the wind and convert that energy from wind energy to mechanical energy, transmits it through the main shaft into the gearbox, which the gearbox steps it up from about 1 revolution to 70 revolutions and puts it on the output shaft of the gearbox, going into the generator here, which then produces power. The generator operates between about 850 to 1400 RPMs.
From the generator, the electric current travels down the tower to underground transmission lines and into the power grid. The main challenge for wind power is the fact that the wind is not blowing at all sites at all times. The solution is to diversify the locations of wind turbines and guide the turbines to the wind. Computer controls can turn the entire turbine up to 360 degrees to catch the prevailing wind. These controls also direct individual blades to pitch into optimum wind position.
Each axis can operate independently of each other. All the blades pitch to the same degree that they're told to pitch to and maintain that. Each turbine will come online on its own. It doesn't need any human interface to do it.
Technicians are needed to perform maintenance on the turbine and to change a light bulb on occasion. Those with a fear of heights need not apply.
I have the benefit of having probably the best office window in Madison County. I mean, if you look out the top, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Hi-ho, Kermit the Frog here. You know, I was just wondering, what if everyone in the world lived in one house? What if everyone in the world lived in one house? We do.
So that's today's episode of the Alternative Energy Comedy Show, everybody. Thanks for coming to
We economic hitmen really have been the ones responsible for creating this first truly global empire. And we work many different ways. But perhaps the most common is that we will identify a country that has resources our corporations covet, like oil, and then arrange a huge loan to that country from the World Bank or one of its sister organizations. But the money never actually goes to the country. Instead, it goes to our big corporations to build infrastructure projects in that country, power plants, industrial parks, ports, things that benefit a few rich people in that country, in addition to our corporations, but really don't help the majority of the people at all. However, those people, the whole country is left holding a huge debt. It's such a big debt they can't repay it, and that's part of the plan, that they can't repay it. And so at some point, we economic hitmen go back to them and say, listen, you owe us a lot of money, can't pay your debt, so sell your oil real cheap to our oil companies. Allow us to build a military base in your country, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world like Iraq, or vote with us on the next UN vote. To have their electric utility company privatized and their water and sewage system privatized and sold to U.S. corporations or other multinational corporations. So there was that whole mushrooming thing, and it's so typical of the way the IMF and the World Bank work, that you put a country in debt, it's such a big debt it can't pay it, and then you offer to refinance that debt and pay even more interest. And you demand this quid pro quo, which you call a conditionality or good governance, which means basically that they've got to sell off their resources, including many of their social services, their utility companies, their school systems sometimes, their penal systems, their insurance systems, to foreign corporations. So it's a double, triple, quadruple whammy. The precedent for economic hitmen really began back in the early 50s when democratically elected Mossadegh, who was elected in Iran, he was considered to be the hope for democracy in the Middle East and around the world. He was Time Magazine's Man of the Year. But one of the things that he'd run on and began to implement was the idea that foreign oil companies needed to pay the Iranian people a lot more for the oil that they were taking out of Iran. The Iranian people should benefit from their own oil. Strange policy. We didn't like that, of course. But we were afraid to do what we normally were doing, which was to send in the military. Instead, we sent in one CIA agent, Kermit Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt's relative. And Kermit went in with a few $1 million and was very, very effective and efficient. And in a short amount of time, he managed to get Mossadegh overthrown and brought in the Shah of Iran to replace him, who always was favorable to oil. And it was extremely effective.
Mobs overflow Tehran. Army officers shout that Mossadegh has surrendered and his regime as virtual dictator of Iran is ended. Pictures of the Shah are paraded through the streets as sentiment reverses. The Shah is welcomed home.
So back here in the United States, in Washington, people looked around and said, wow, that was easy and cheap. So this established a whole new way of manipulating countries, of creating empire. The only problem with Roosevelt was that he was a card-carrying CIA agent, and had he been caught, the ramifications could have been pretty serious. So very quickly at that point, the decision was made to use private consultants to channel the money through the World Bank or the IMF or one of the other such agencies, to bring in people like me who worked for private companies, so that if we got caught, there would be no governmental ramifications. When Arbenz became president of Guatemala, the country was very much under the thumbs of United Fruit Company, the big international corporations. And